How you guys doing today? That was not rhetorical. I really want an answer. I'm still waking up, so. All right, so first and foremost, I want to apologize. I had to come over, and I had a little bit of a layover in the UK. And usually I have lots of toys up here for this talk, but the UK didn't like the fact that I was traveling with a miniature Predator drone, so they sent it back to the States. So I've got pictures and some movies and stuff as we go through this. Unfortunately, I don't have my big radio-controlled airplane with me. So we'll get a little bit started here. So first and foremost, the talk's going to be a little bit about how to use like everyday items, some toys, things like that, to break through physical security, technical securities, things like that. It should be fun. Do a little bit of a history lesson included. We're going to do some background on James Bond in particular, just because I think James Bond's cool as hell. Then we're going to actually go into the history a little bit about some of the espionage techniques and things like that we'll actually talk about. Actually figure out why James Bond is so cool, which is a rhetorical question. And then we're going to go through some of the toys and stuff like that, and the ease of access and the ability to get a hold of the stuff. And then we're actually going to do a hacking demo, and then we're going to do a live demo. I've got my phone up here. So earlier this year, I released a version of Ubuntu that runs on smartphones that's pen test specific. So it's got a lot of built-in tools similar to like Backtrack. I actually released before Backtrack did. So yeah, we'll have some fun. So a little bit about me. I am a pen tester at Rapid7. I've been doing this for about 8 years. Started my own security company, IT company while I was still in high school. So I've been in the industry for a long time. This is my 14th conference that I've talked at already this year. So I've been doing a lot of these. This is only the second time that I've done this talk, so it should be fun. It's a lot more fun when I have gadgets. So James Bond, a little bit, obviously, 007. Fictional character created in 1953 by Ian Fleming. I'm sure most of you guys have at least seen one James Bond movie or read a novel or something throughout your lives. If you notice, he never ages. Like Ian Fleming made it in the stories that he will never age. They say his birth date was roughly 1921-ish. So it depends on which book you actually go by. A little bit more history. So, son of Andrew Bond, and so he's a good, UK resident, and was 11 when his parents actually were killed in a mountain climbing accident. As fun as I guess that is, I've never been mountain climbing, so. Bond family motto is actually one of the names of the films, so it's just kind of cool, fun little facts that you guys can play with later. Something that you might get at some bar trivia somewhere. And then to go into a little bit about the real stuff. So obviously you see a lot of things that come up in movies and a lot of things that look like fantasy or fiction, things like that. But a lot of the stuff is actually being used out there. Not only does the movies take stuff from real life, but real life takes things from movies a lot of times. So first and foremost, every good spy needs to know about the dead drop. Basically, it's the act of hiding something where someone else can retrieve it without alerting anyone else or having anyone else notice it. The Russians actually accused Britain of using a radio dead drop. What they did was they actually built a radio transmitter into a fake rock. So if you're familiar with like the key hides that you can put your rocks in, or put the key in, it looks like a rock and throw it in your front lawn and nobody noticed it. Well, the Brits actually decided to put a radio transmitter and receiver in there, so that somebody would be able to walk by with just a transmitter, put the information into the rock, and then somebody could come by later and pick it up. And no longer did they necessitate the ability to actually walk over and pick anything up physically. You could simply walk by, look like you're on your phone, and grab the information that way. So, yeah. Bugs, obviously for wiretapping, things like that, still used pretty much for surveillance in everyday life. In particular, in 2003, the US FBI decided that they wanted access to everybody's car systems. So they actually went after your in-car GPS, OnStar systems and things like that, and were using it for a little bit of time for surveillance on people without anybody knowing. They actually turned that over and said that they couldn't do it because it was actually disabling the security function of it. So no, if they were actually listening to you and you got into a car accident or whatever, the guys that we're supposed to call weren't able to actually send an ambulance. So they decided that that was bad, and they reversed that, so they can no longer do it. So they say. And then today, with the ability and use of smartphones and everything like that, using some of your Android rootkits and things like that, you can actually turn those on for monitoring devices, recording devices, phone, or for video, whatever you need. And it's a nice way to be undetected when you're actually connecting to someone and listening to whatever their conversation is and things like that. Steganography, I'm sure a good number of you guys know what that is. The first time that was actually referred to as steganography was in 1499. And because it was, again, he was trying to hide it, the author actually put it in a book that was listed under a magic. So it was even the book about steganography was hidden, which I thought was kind of funny. And then surveillance. Obviously, this is a big thing, no matter whether it's electronic with bugs or video or person, human int type stuff. This stuff is always a huge thing for organizations, whether it's going to be somebody that's trying to do some social engineering physically, or whether it's a government trying to watch somebody in particular. So some of the different kinds of surveillance, spying, if you will, is obviously your computers, your telephones, social media, things like that. It could be even just somebody sitting, watching, and performing human int operations. Global positioning, if they want to look and find out where your Garmin device is, or your phone, or whatever that you're carrying on you. It makes it very easy today with the connections and everything that everybody has with them every day. So, what makes James Bond so cool? So this is where we start to actually have a little bit of fun. So, who wants to yell out some answers? Why is James Bond so cool? There you go. Yes, very good. He is the brains behind the.
He's always full of gas.
He's always full of gas. Yeah, he never runs out of gas. Anybody else? Come on. There you go. See, now we're starting to think. All right. So I mean, obviously, every time that he's wearing his tux, he why are we? There we go. It's never wrinkled. If you ever notice, doesn't matter whether he's getting out of the water, doesn't matter whatever. He just has this magical tux that he always looks, just definitely distinguished in. But I as cool as that is, it's still, how about the love of martinis? Come on, everybody loves a good drink. I know I had a few last night, so. A couple other guys were with me for those. It wasn't just me, so. And obviously, it has to be the women, right? So James Bond always has beautiful women around him at all points in time. Got a lot of them. So yeah, I really did just do a slide montage of women. So, but really, it's what everybody's here to talk about. What really makes Bond so cool? It's all the toys and stuff that he actually gets to play with. So when I was actually doing this, I started playing with a lot of everyday stuff and really wanted to have some of the really cool toys. So I started looking at what's available out there that you can actually just go on the internet and order and pretend to be James Bond. So first thing was, to take a look at what were the key Bond toys that were, the ones that I really wanted. And obviously, the first one that I thought about was the jetpack. Now, I'm sure that everybody here has at least seen Rocket Man, the guy that flies around. And I looked at that, and it's like $350,000 for one of those. So I was like, that's just not feasible. So I started looking a little bit further, and I'm going to cut out here because the video that I put in there isn't as great. And I actually found something pretty awesome. And if this loads up without issue here. Let's give me 1 second here. Where is? Oh, that's not it. All right, we'll do the shitty video, I guess. Yeah. So I started looking, and I was like, well, you know, it would be really awesome if I could find someone that actually had one of these things that you could actually fly around with. I said, sorry about the shitty conversion, but. Yeah, it is water, by the way. So yeah, there's a couple of guys that actually decided to make a jetpack out of fire hoses, essentially. So unfortunately, they only made 70 of these things, and they're already sold out. I tried to get on the waiting list, but I was like, you know, this would be absolutely awesome. I don't care who's got the best wave runner out there. Nothing beats the jetpack. I mean, come on. So it's an awesome video. Obviously I don't work for any of these companies, so it's not a promo video of any sort. But it was one of those things that I just thought that, you know, if you're gonna be James Bond, you got to have some kind of a jetpack. So this thing actually flies at like 35 feet off the water. It's the big black hose on the back is what's actually pumping it, and there's like this little wave runner thing that follows. So it's limited to water, but you can actually, you know, become a submarine or whatever you want. Yeah, I was like, this is an awesome toy. So, all right, if anybody wants to watch the rest of the video, you can check it out on YouTube. It's called JetLev. They sell for about $100,000, which is, you know, a third of the cost of the other one. But yeah, I thought, all right, you know, if you're gonna be James Bond, you seriously got to have one of these toys, because without it, it's just not the same. So I'll quit the video because it's kind of choppy, but. So then I was thinking, okay, well, you know, I want, you know, something that I could actually, you know, play with and maybe see if I can get some more information, intelligent stuff. So I really wish it was here, but I decided to build a remote control airplane. So I've been doing RC stuff for a lot, and inside here, it actually has if anybody was at DEF CON, they had one of the guys out there with one of the UAVs that had the 802.11 stuff in there. Well, I added the 802.11 stuff. I've actually got one of these phones in there, which supports GSM as well as GPS and everything else. So it actually sends me back its altitude and everything wirelessly. And actually put in an autopilot and GPS, basically an open source kind of actual UAV controls to this. And I bought the model for about $200 online. So this isn't even like something that, you know, you got to go out and spend a huge, and it even came with the remote control. I upgraded that obviously, but so yeah, it's a cool little toy. Like I said, unfortunately, they didn't really like the fact that I had this with me. So that's the camera that's mounted on front. So the camera is actually controlled by a servo on there from another channel that's on the radio, so you can rotate the camera 360 degrees, just like on the real one. It's also got, like I said, the GPS and everything. So for like $300, including all the GPS, the autopilot, everything else, I was actually able to have myself a Predator drone. Unfortunately, it wasn't one of the ones that fired anything, but it was still pretty cool. So I actually used this during a physical social engineering engagement and did a video which was pretty similar to this because they had security guards and stuff that, and they had a fenced-in physical perimeter. And even if you were actually using this against some, for testing purposes only, some of the larger organizations, it's got such a small cross section that it's not even going to really show up other than like a bird. So plus it's all made out of like foam and balsa wood. So you're not gonna, it's not really going to be picked up too well other than the sound of an electric motor. The flight time is dependent upon the battery that you actually put in. It's all run off of electric. There's no gas or anything like that you have to worry about. They come in, you can either ducted fanned or you can have just an actual prop on there. So, but yeah, so I was like, yeah, this is a pretty cool thing. It actually stands about this tall, and the wings are about as wide as my arm span. So, and it floats. Like, this thing can stay up in the air for probably about 4 hours on a single charge. Just because if you set it up where it'll actually glide and actually have a little bit of a drop in the altitude, it'll then only fire the engine up when it actually has to gain lift. So, it's a pretty cool little toy, But I was like, all right, this stuff's fun, this stuff's cool, but there's got to be something better. What's that next, that even better, Bond toy thing that really makes him, James Bond? And my thought was, it's got to be the car, right? What about, the ability to go underwater in your car? And there's always been some weird, crazy person that decided to make a car that went underwater, but none of them were really cool enough to be considered Bond's car. So I did a little bit of research and decided that if I was going to do it, I needed to do it right. So I found this, and this is actually their video, and there's an app for this, by the way. So yes, he's actually controlling his car by his phone. It's got a camera on the front, some lasers that actually reads the road in front of him and such. And it's kind of got that cool, sports car-y look, kind of like one of the Teslas. So I was like, all right, this is pretty cool. I'm all right with this. So I did some more research and such, and this thing actually is sports. It's got sports car speed and everything else. So I was like, all right, this could be Bond's car. But let's see if this thing actually performs underwater. Yeah. It's got 2 built-in oxygen tanks. So, So it's everything in it is all electric. It's all zero emissions. So for your green people out there, that you can be James Bond and be green at the same time. It's actually got a top speed of like 120 miles an hour, 140 miles an hour, right in between there, depending on who you ask. And it actually performed pretty well. And just like James Bond, as we get a little bit towards here, somehow this guy's tux again is dry. I know. And he's drinking a martini.
Is there a waiting list for this?
As far as I know, they've only produced like 5 of them. So I don't know if they're going to actually move these into a production, or if it's like one of those things where you have the money, you can have one. So again, I'm trying to find that waiting list. If anybody knows of anybody from,
Do you have a discount code for us?
But like I said, there is an app for it. So depending on the security of the app, you might get one for free. Basically with all those tools, I was like, all right, so I can bypass a lot of the physical security. I can get away. I can drive into the water and get away, but those were still semi-unfeasible for purchasing and a little bit out of my budget, and really couldn't get my employer to back any of the jetpacks or anything. So then I decided to look at some of the smaller stuff. There's obviously you have your spy pen, and yeah, every good spy's got to have a way to watch what's going on, record video, audio, things like that. So I found this one online. It's actually got a USB connector on the bottom of it, and you can record about I think it's like 37 minutes, 30-some minutes of film on here internally. And again, I mean, you're talking minuscule, and these things sell for $30 online. So I was like, all right, cool. Now I can record everything that I'm doing after I get in on my jetpack, and started looking at the phone. Obviously, we just saw that you can control your phone or control your submersible car with your phone, just like James did in which was it? Tomorrow Never Dies, I think it was. Quit. And then, of course, you had, Quantum of Solace, where he had the hidden camera in his phone and things like that. Nowadays, everybody knows that there's cameras on your phone. Had some satellite imaging and things like that you could do with it. So I was like, all right, well, does it actually have anything to do with InfoSec? And, as much as it's cool, as cool as it is to be James Bond, if you're not able to really do anything other than, just gain the intelligence because you don't have a license to kill, then, what's the deal? So what I did was I actually put together the WMD project, which is, again, a full pen testing distribution of Ubuntu made for smartphones. So the one that I actually have sitting up here is the old Rhodium. It's online. You can get it for about $60-$70 US. And you can have a full distribution of Ubuntu running. It's got Metasploit built in. It's got, wish it would stop doing that. Social Engineer's Toolkit built in, Nmap, a whole lot of utilities all pre-built into it. It's open source, so you can freely download everything. Everything's available online. And then the newest version actually runs on Android as well. Thanks to the market, you can actually go on and download Android Linux installer, and you can now push button install Linux or Ubuntu or Debian onto your phone. So moving forward, I no longer actually had to pre-package a lot of this stuff, so now the latest revision of the WMD package is an install script. So everything runs from an installer script, and you get a full distribution of Ubuntu on there. And in particular, even if you do use one of the older ones, you still get Bluetooth, you still get GPS, you still get 3G service. You can actually use your phone while you're also in the Ubuntu environment, get your text messages and everything, import your contacts, things like that. So you can actually stay connected while you need to do it. So I actually said, at the beginning that we're going to do some live hacking. So let's bring this demo up here. And what I have, there we go, is I have a VNC session actually set up to my phone right here. So this is the phone sitting on the stage. If anybody want to watch the walk up or whatever, you guys can come see it. But it works just like any other Ubuntu build. So you get your full information, you've got full script, you've got app installed, you've got everything that's running in the background. So what I did was I actually took a couple of Windows VMs here. I'm just showing them. They're actually on my screen if you don't believe. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to run Metasploit from the phone against these VMs. So like any good cooking show, let me take Metasploit out of the oven here. Oh, that's CNC. There we go. So we've got framework set up here. And because I'm doing it over VNC, you kind of got to bear with me here. The clipboard and stuff isn't the greatest, but so if first things first, that most times that you're going to do is you're obviously going to run an Nmap scan. I'm going to cheat a little bit because I'm going to actually run this, but I'm not. I know what the IPs I'm going against, so like I said, I'm cheating a little bit. But We'll do we'll do a scan against 192.168. And 73. So again, like I said, I know the IP address that I'm looking at, so it's for demo purposes. Normally, if you're going to run this, you're going to run this against your network or whatever. And so there we've got some interesting information. So we've obviously got a Windows machine running, and what's like the number one go-to Metasploit package if you're going to try to get something to run on a Windows machine? Anybody? MS-08 067. Anybody know that one? Come on. MS-08 067, if you're unfamiliar, was kind of made famous by the configure worm that had a nasty little spread. And so if I go ahead and paste this in here. So we're going to set this exploit here. Everybody here is at least familiar with Metasploit, somewhat? Yes? No? Yes? Yes? No? Yes? There you go. Answer. Yes. So we're going to use the MS-08 exploit. We're going to use set our payload here. So we're gonna use a bind payload. We're gonna use bind TCP, and we're gonna try to set up a Meterpreter session. If anybody's unfamiliar with Meterpreter, it's a really nice utility that it'll basically run in RAM. Use it for all your connections. Runs lots of fun little tools and things like that. So if we do show options, we're going to see what we're able to set. So again, now I know what machine that we want to go after from doing our Nmap scan here. So we want to go after this .73 machine, right? See if we get anything on there. So if we do we set our host, which is going to be our target, to that 73 address. Happens a little faster on the phone here. So, and then we already know that we're going to use that same port. Obviously, we're going to connect over 443, things like that. And because we're using a bind, we don't actually have to set our local address. So if everything works, we should be able to run exploit and actually have this thing connect. So while this is running, this can be, I've actually used this as a proof of concept for one of my clients when I first released this. And a couple of years ago, I got some more inspiration from one of the previous DEF CON talks. And what he did was they basically sent an iPhone in with a battery backup and was able to get access. So I was like, all right, cool. So what I did was I actually put my phone into a box, had a battery backup on there, and mailed it to my client. Because the previous day while I was doing my walk around for their physical engagement, I found out that they still had WEP deployed within their loading dock. And in their loading dock, the reason that I found out afterwards is because their scanners were so bad. They're so old that they only supported WEP. So cracked that, pre-populated the information into the phone, mailed that out, and mailed it on a Thursday, overnighted it with UPS so that it would sit there on Friday, and mailed it to myself. Now, obviously, I didn't work there. Nobody else knew that I was sending it to myself. So what are they going to do? it's going to sit there until they figure out that I don't actually work there. So it sat in their loading dock for about 18 hours while I connected to it, sitting in my lazy boy, in my boxers, playing Call of Duty, running Metasploit packages against their server environment because their scanners were connected to their inventory control system, which was in their server environment. So I was actually able to start doing running some of the utilities and such right from my lazy boy sitting at home. And if we get the interpreter console set up here, we already got the session, so there we go. So first thing that we're going to do is we're going to run hash dump. Everybody familiar with that script? Yeah. All right. So we're going to use that, and we're going to actually dump those local hashes for hopefully an administrator account. Now, one thing that I found in a lot of the pen tests that I've done was that a lot of organizations use a standard local administrator. What do we got? Let's try that again. So what I found is a lot of organizations use a standard build because it cuts down on the amount of time and effort and money and things like that organizations have to spend on putting out machines. And when they do that, generally they have a shared local administrator account. So there you can see we've got our administrator account, our Windows 500 account here. And here's our hash. Now, anybody here familiar with pass the hash? Yes? All right. So what I've got is I've actually got a second VM set up. And we're going to see if we can do this. So on a normal engagement, what I'll do is I'll try, if I can get access to one of these, I'll take the module, we can exit out of this. And if I use the PSExec module in Metasploit, one step ahead of me. If I use the PSExec module, this one, no. Too many X's in there. Oh, what? Is it? Okay. So if we use this and we actually do the show options, we can see everything that we need to set here. And you can actually use this against a single host. If you use some of the newer Metasploit ones, like Metasploit Community and some of the other free versions with the GUI that Rapid7 just released, you can run this against CIDR ranges. You can run this against multiple network segments, things like that. So you can actually run this utility through a whole lot of different machines. So if we set our hash, or excuse me, our password, so we're going to set our SMB pass to that hash that we were able to get right here. Too far. Come on. There we go. Stop moving. So if we take this hash that we just grabbed off of the one host and we paste that down to the one below, if we scroll down. There we go. So we'll set that, and then we're going to set our SMB user as administrator. Helps if you hit enter. And then we're going to set our user to administrator here, if it refreshes itself. And now, normally, if you would have run Nmap and doing your discovery, you would have known that there was more machines out there. But again, I'm going to cheat here. So we have a second target that I set up. And if you don't believe me, I can show you. So we have target 2 here, which is again secured. Well, we've got a username and password on there, so it's secure, right? Username and password secure everything. And if we do a show options again, we'll actually see that the hash was populated into the SMB password section, and the administrator username is set up in the SMB user. So if we do a set our host for our other machine, which in this case is going to be a 192.168.1.136 address, and if everything works, because we used again a standard build, then we should be able to get another interpreter session. Oh, helps if I set a payload. That might help. So again, we're going to use Meterpreter here. I use Meterpreter every time that I possibly can, just because it's a really good utility. You got a lot of scripts and things like that that you can natively use. And if everything works properly, we should be able to get a connection on that second machine. So all we're doing is we're taking, you no longer have to, if you're unfamiliar with pass to hash, you no longer actually have to crack passwords anymore. So as long as you get access to that hash, thank you to Windows for making PSExec available, we can actually do a pass the hash using one of the Microsoft utilities. And if it all works, you should be able to get a session with just that hash. So it's the refresh rate on the VNC session's a little bit slow. Later on, if anybody wants to play with the phone, test it out, see what it does, kind of muck around with it, you're more than welcome to. Just find me somewhere. Otherwise, you can download the stuff online. So if this thing refreshes sometime soon. It's thinking. There we go. So we just ended up setting up the connection to that secondary machine using that password hash. It's generating its service account, and we should have an interpreter session coming up here in just a second. And again, this is all running off of a phone. So anywhere that I've used this also for other social engineering engagements where if you can actually gain access and you plug this thing into the wall, you have power for as long as the building has power. You don't need to use a SIM card in there if you don't want to. You can still use the wireless connection on there. But if you use the SIM card, then you have 3G access. And there we've got our interpreter session. So again, you can do this across an entire domain. You can do this across multiple machines. Any of the normal scripts, services, things like that are built in the Metasploit framework are available here. You can you can actually run Social Engineers Toolkit to do some web hacking and things like that because Apache is built in as well. So you can also do some of the SMS attacks that are now built into SET as well from your phone. So there we go. There's our interpreter session, and we can run whatever we want from there. Next one that I would normally do would be run cred collect. And that's going to also get your domain tokens and things like that. So you can, again, do a token impersonation session with your domain users and everything also from your phone. So while that's running, I'll kind of skip back and go back to the actual slides here. So that was sweet, right? That was fun. So really, I mean, this type of thing, whether it's using a remote controlled drone, whether it's deciding to have the expenditure of a jetpack to get over somebody's fence, or it's to use your phone to leverage the ability to take everyday items, it affects everybody's organization, their security policy procedure, and things like that. But having these outside ways of entry and ideas aren't your normal everyday things. So if IT managers, if support teams, things like that, don't actually take the time to go, well, could I do it? Fuck yeah, that was cool. When you actually get done, a lot of times this stuff nobody ever thinks about actually doing it. So it goes back to really having best practices to actually protect against this stuff. It's all your normal everyday, make sure that you have active monitoring, your IDS, IPS, stuff like that. Security awareness is huge. If somebody sees a remote control or a miniature predator drone flying over your building, you might want to alert somebody. Just a thought. Policy and procedure, obviously, if you don't have anything that somebody knows how to do things or where to go or who to talk to, and you have this stuff written, organizations pay thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars every year to have policies and procedures written to only sit on top of somebody's file cabinet, collect dust. If they're not enforced, if they're not actually put out there and actually enacted, enabled, and known, then nobody's going to be able to follow them. Any rules are bad. Yes, don't use it. It's not recommended. If you're having a pen test done, especially, turn it off, because it's not going to benefit you in any way. So really, I mean, the goal of the presentation is really to have fun. It's to open up an awareness for things that you might think fantasy, you might think fiction, you might think some kind of weird, cool movie idea, but a lot of stuff is really available out there. The ability to allow phones to walk wherever you are. I mean, if I went to work tomorrow and my organization said that I can't have my phone, I would probably figure out how to get it in. I need my Angry Birds at lunch. So that's business necessity. That's, yes. Having these things able to just freely walk in and out without thinking about them and some other context, then it's just a phone, it's just a toy, things like that. Nobody's ever going to think about how to protect against the stuff, and the stuff walks in and out of everyone's organization every day. So that's my spiel. I think I'm in time. Awesome. Fantastic. So yep, that's everything. If you have any questions or anything, feel free to hit me up on Twitter, email. You can check out my site. All the stuff for the devices can be downloaded at my website. Everything's free. There's 2 versions. If you want to go with the older one and you want to get a phone that you can actually discard if you need to, for like $60, there's a light version, and then there's a full version. The full version, you need an 8 gig micro SD card for your phone. If you want the light one, you can do it on a 4 gig. But yeah, if you have any questions or anything, feel free to hit me up at any time.